Today, we've got a potluck of questions for Charles Coulomb. And we've got a live stream going on. Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a bemused Charles Coulomb.
Bemused. Bemused. Okay. I'm good with it. Yeah. I'd say that about fits it.
Yeah?
Yeah, no major what's the word I want?
Problems?
Pros or cons.
Yeah.
No major I see that I see that we're already here on the what do you call it? Off the menu bemused. I just got to kill the noise. And now, if people come in, oh, look, people have already jumped in. What do you know?
Awesome.
Isn't that something? Yeah, we've got Wayland Bucephalus. We've got My Ear Trumpet. Nobody else's, only his. Suburban Catholic. For the penultimate time we meet again. Domestic Coffee Man. Hello from Indiana. Who's your daddy out there? Who's your daddy? Okay, never mind. Anyway, boy, I feel, I miss our this is our penultimate episode on Off the Menu. I feel as though we should have like special guests. Peter Barlow from Ask Okie should be here. And even though she doesn't know me from Adam, Carol Ann from the In Between, we this should be kind of like an all-star something or other, nothing in particular.
That's right. Well, we announced it, so all the super mega diehards are jumping in quickly. Yeah.
Well, glad to have you with us. Yeah, I mean, guys, it weighs heavily. I can't say on our consciences, possibly our livers, but this is a weird feeling, and we leave behind you as a legacy a world that is, if anything, screwier than when we started. You see, two men can make a difference.
Wow. Oh, man.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, when we started out, this is where the boomer gets to give one of the old, you know how it was back in the day.
Yeah.
When men were men and sheep were nervous. No, the looking back over the past almost decade, man, did we go down the rabbit hole and never come up.
Yeah, thinking back to it, there is a lot that happened. Well, one of my favorite happenings from the show was sometime between 2016 2019. You had talked about basically what would happen in a pandemic situation.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, "Oh, Charles Coulomb, the prophet. He's got a crystal ball. He said it, and then it happened, and it was exactly as he said it is. What's next?" And I like that so much because somewhere Criswell is smiling.
Yeah, somewhere Criswell is smiling, indeed. I had my Criswell moment. With him, it was the Kennedy assassination. For me, it was COVID. And as my late father used to say, the stop clock is right twice a day. But no, in my case, it wasn't the crystal ball or even the evil tarot cards. In fact, the tarot cards didn't tell us nothing about this lying piece of cardboard is what they was. They didn't say nothing. No, I'll tell you what it was. It's just that I know stupid. I know stupid real well. I spent a whole lifetime understanding, getting to learn, getting to appreciate stupid on its own terms. And never more than when I realized stupid was in charge of me. Stupiditas omnia vincit! Yeah! Stupid's having a little trouble there trying to get its hands together. But seriously, I this time of year, right now, we're having a rash of stupid all across the continent. You know, Native Europeans are being attacked right and left by the immigrants. They've had attacks on Christmas markets, churches, of course. You know, if it were a synagogue or a mosque that were attacked, you know, the double anus people of all sorts would be yapping and jumping up and down like nobody's business. But when it's a church, oh well, gee, look, I don't. What's the next story? That's not important. Yeah, I know it's not important. I get it. And then an acquaintance of mine, I haven't seen him in a few years, but an acquaintance of mine who's an Austrian has a terrible, terrible reputation amongst all the right people, by the name of Martin Sellner, he's the head of Identity Austria. The Identitarians are a bunch of hard right young people. You know how terrible they are. I don't know what, honestly, I don't know what the rulership hate more, that they're quote unquote far right or that they're young. You know, because the problem is that being young, their ideas are probably going to last a bit longer than those of the leadership. That's why the leadership have to suppress them as hard as they can while they're still on this side of the grave. In the immortal words of Zero Mostel, speaking of his clients in The Producers, looking for one last thrill on the way to the cemetery. That's what all of this excitement about these kids is. That last thrill on the way to the cemetery. You know, it'd probably be better off if they sought out somebody like Zero Mostel, but then never mind. When you're in charge, you do what you want. Anyway, let me find. He wrote something that I actually quoted on Twitter, and I don't do it that often. Actually, repost something like this, but it was I thought sufficiently important about the current situation in going on here right now that I felt it necessary. Uh, yeah, here we are. And I'll quote myself. First, I say Martin Sellner made these comments on Twitter. Whatever you may think of him or his movement, the Identitarians, his words here are impossible to argue with. I commented on the insane reaction to him and his 7 years ago, and I've got the link for Crisis Magazine. He speaks the truth, like it or not. So this is the line. It says, some friends abroad ask me why Europeans, especially German right-wingers, so often appear to take the side of foreign powers in economic or military conflicts. Why they even might root for Russia or the United States instead of the EU. My simplest answer is a question. Did you think the anti-communist opposition in Soviet-occupied Hungary was quote-unquote rooting for the Taliban or the Soviets during the Afghanistan war? You might say this tendency is an irrational overreaction, and in the more extreme cases, I would agree. But this is the core situation. The very demographic that would be willing to fight and even die for their nation or for Europe despises its own elites more than any foreign leader. And that sentiment is not unhealthy. Foreign leaders have foreign interests. They may be adversaries today and allies tomorrow. There are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. One can even respect an enemy. But our own elites, I got to tell you, this is funny. Our own elites, the Oreos, Oreos, old retarded European oligarchs.
Okay.
Are actively replacing us with third world migrants and suppressing free speech. They sedate our people with an endless stream of consumer slop and indoctrinate children the moment they enter kindergarten. These elites are the primary threat. Population replacement is the greatest danger to 6,000 years of cultural continuity. No one, not Putin, not Trump, not Xi Jinping, not Erdogan, nor any other foreign leader despises, damages, or manipulates Europeans more than the EU ruling class. I think no one who is not a European can understand how much we, European patriots, despise them. We have perhaps 20 years to remove them through a peaceful, patriotic, democratic, quote-unquote, color revolution, pull the emergency brake on the Great Replacement, and begin remigration. Everything else is secondary. Anyone who does not understand this is either naive or complicit, in my opinion. Well, that's a pretty. I'll tell you what. That's kind of a smack across the face. That's what we call an old cheek puncher in my day. Like a knee slapper, only not funny. Uh, no, I tell you, I wish I could say he was wrong. You know, and the problem is a situation like that when you've got the leadership tolerating such egregious garbage on the one hand, and then going after the people who point out, oh my gosh, look, it's egregious garbage on the other. What do they think they're going to get? What is that going to produce but a younger generation that hate your stinking guts? And one that will grab at anything and anyone who says, you know what? You see that reality you perceive? It's a reality. This is a hard concept for people my age and somewhat younger. It's tough, especially if we're in power. It's not so hard when we're not in power for some reason. But when we are, it gets really hard to understand. I don't get it. And you see the same phenomenon in the church. Beautifully echoed, if you will.
Well, I remember something you said. I don't know. It's probably about like 7 years ago or something now. We were talking about the politics of Europe and their characteristics compared to the politics of America. And I'll
Oh,
never forget that you said the political sentiment in Europe can flip on a dime. And it
yeah.
can go super conservative in a scary way, like that.
Yep.
Is that is that still looming, or what's the situation there in terms of that?
Well, so the situation is for the normal person, that is to say, somebody who's not in charge or, sucking off the state. For the normal person, life is getting by small increments ever harder. It varies according to the country. At the same time, they're aware of the increasing crime rate on the part of the migrants and so on. And also the governments are spending a lot of money on the migrants they bring over here at the very time that they're raising taxes and applying the screws to the native populace in different ways, and really going after what they consider hate speech in incredibly restrictive, malevolent ways. I mean, because ultimately, the only thing you can say is that they hate and fear their native-born subjects. That's all. That's the only thing one can get out of it. And you see this. I don't know if the average person would catch it, but you see this in the way they happily destroy anything specific to that particular country, minimize it, push it aside, etc. Um, the wonderful meme that shows secure stormtrooper in Britain saying there is no attack on freedom of speech in Britain, and anyone who says there is will go to jail. Is it's funny, but it's also true. So what I suspect will happen, and then of course the third element is the Muslim population themselves, the immigrant population. They're not all Muslim, and I have to be, you know, in the rush to be crazy and to jump up and down about stuff, especially when there's so many outrageous things going on. It's easy to draw uh, facile, simple pictures, but of course they're distorted. So you'll find a number of immigrants who are perfectly decent people who came to this continent to get away from hellholes that decolonization formed in various parts of the world. Uh, You find a lot of people like that, but of course they're not the ones getting the headlines by killing, murdering, and maiming, and raping. And it's people like that, inevitably you find out they're on some sort of government relief. They were brought over through some program. The government put out X amount of money, and I don't care which government it is. It's always the same nonsense. If this level of violence continues to get higher, if the Oreos reaction, I love that word, Oreo, old retarded European oligarch. If the Oreos continue to tighten the screws every time someone says, "Oh look, there's another old lady murdered on the subway and her purse taken," and the reaction is to jail the man who points this out. There's going to come a breaking point, and that's when you will
I
see
don't
the
believe
turn on the
that.
dime.
I don't. I feel like people from liberal democracies, there's no end to how much they will swallow. To me,
That's there is in Europe, and we've seen it in the
but
past.
based
And I
on what though? How about the recent past? You see, like
well, the recent past is a whole other
be,
kettle of fish.
because there's so much. Because I feel like there's so much in place to pacify people. I feel like there's what a superstructure there to make
At,
sure. Yeah,
at the moment there is the wild card, of course, will always be the economy. People, you've also heard me say that we're not in any real major danger of eruptive change, so long as there are ads fighting obesity. As long as obesity is still a major problem in a society, for the most people, will be quiet. It's when they're starving that they begin to get wild.
I feel like that's so far down. I mean, like for example, an intermediate spot, in my humble opinion, would be the spot Japan is in, where you have people. I mean, you have things like quote unquote black companies, which is the Japanese sort of term for companies that are hugely exploitative, where you're clocking in at 7 a.m., you're clocking out at 8 p.m., something like that, right? And you're living in a tiny box at home. You just have no life. You're just kind of a slave in a certain sense. Um, I, I just I don't see people rebelling over economic stuff. I feel like
It
their
it
rebelling
it
will be, oh, where's can you give me a check, Mr. Trump? Where's my help check? And I'll
it
vote
will
for you.
depend. But if there's no check, if there's nothing, I mean, again, history is unpredictable. We don't. But take it to the man who predicted COVID. if there is if there is something that the regime can handle, it will break, and the breaking will not be pretty. The longer it takes, the crazier the regime gets. And I really can't tell you what that break's going to be. But imagine, for instance, if we had a real COVID. Imagine we had an outbreak of something that really was another Black Death. Man alive, you saw what they did with COVID. They'd go cray cray. And of course, the worst of it is nobody would believe them in the beginning because they shot their credibility. So they get a real horrific disease come out. No one believes them.
Let me use a different metaphor. In fact, let me use your metaphor. Let me
Uh-oh.
use your
Always a
metaphor.
mistake. Always a mistake.
This is going to be a tough one for you, I feel
All
like.
right, we'll see. We'll see.
How scary can an Eloi Rebellion really be?
That is a very good question. And the answer is it depends on whether Rod Taylor stuck around.
but you see what I'm getting at.
No, I do, and that's why I make that response. This is where individuals, the right man or the wrong man, at the particular moment, can make a huge difference. It's not just about mass movements. History is made by the efforts of determined individuals and determined minorities. Um, what would an Eloi Rebellion look like? Rod Taylor had stuck behind. It would have looked pretty bad for the Morlocks. that's what an Eloi Rebellion would look like. All you could say is there would be a rebellion led by the prettiest people on earth. Now, whether or not a Morlock being pulled out into the light and gleefully stepped on and stabbed by a bunch of pretty-looking teenagers, whether he would appreciate the aesthetics of the given Morlock, I mean, I don't think he would. But imagine if in what actually happens in the book, is that's what happens. He goes back to Eloyville with weapons. And I'll tell you, I think the Morlocks were in for a real bad time of it. Books. We have books. Yeah, I get it. Now take this rifle. Yes, you see that hulking thing over there that's shuffling toward us? Yes. Lift up the rifle like this. Yes. Here, I'll help you. I'll pull the trigger for you. Bam. Boom. Oh, Morlock fall down. Is he hurt? No, Mr. Morlock's not hurt. Then he'll never feel any pain again. I like hurting Mr. Morlock. It's fun. Hey, everybody, take these tubes, pull the trigger, go boom boom at Morlock. It's fun. Meanwhile, at Morlock Central,
Morlock Central. Oh.
It would be very upsetting at Morlock Central. And the worst of it, I could imagine him figuring out a way to play something louder than because remember they were trained to go to the Morlock lair whenever they heard the air raid siren, and that was why the Morlocks were able to eat them so easily. So, what he'd figure out some loud noise to break the Eloi's training. Oh, vicious Elois. I can't imagine anything worse, frankly, than being shot, killed, and possibly dismembered by a band of blood-crazed Eloi. And if you were a Morlock, you'd have a hard time believing it was happening.
Well, that's true.
I mean, this is something you're not prepared for. The cattle suddenly getting brains, getting guts. And it wouldn't have happened without that terrible time traveler falling in love with Weena.
Okay.
So let that be a lesson to you, young man. Never get the Eloi upset.
Yeah, well, that is reminiscent of I think you're drawing from your experience in Southern California when there are riots, and I remember you said Beverly Hills turns into a barracks.
Yeah, I agree, and I did too. I mean, that was the armed state of Beverly Hills. Shoot to kill. That lives on in my memory forever. Was the standoff between the Beverly Hills PD and the rioters.
Yeah.
And they gave the speech. If you cross the line, you will be shot. And 3 or 4 people crossed the line. Pop, pop, pop. And that was the end of the riot there.
And even in what is it? What do you call it? The hot summer of burning love.
Hot summer of burning love. Yeah.
There was actually an active effort to cross, what was it, Cahuenga or something? Go north.
Yeah.
Go north into and push into Beverly Hills, and people were like, "What?" There was this chatter about like, oh, we're only rioting in poor people area. Let's take it to the
Yeah,
rich. And you know
yeah,
what?
yeah. See what happens.
Somehow they never made it. They just never made
Yeah,
it.
gee, that's because some of the less stupid had memories, and they could remember back in '92 the way I could. You don't want to cross the Beverly Hills PD because they work for rich liberals. And them orders to shoot. I mean, Tyrone's got nothing on the Beverly Hills PD in a riot. Where do you think he did his? Where do you think he got his start? I'm not going to figure anybody or point anyone out for general interest or anything, but uh, rumor has it, and it may not be true, that in the '92 riots, Tyrone was an equal opportunity officer in Beverly Hills. Because of their quota system,
Sure.
he got in.
Yeah.
But he was already the eyes on the prize security man we know and love today. And as he used to say, black, white, doesn't matter when you shoot them, same color, red.
Yeah, that sounds like him.
Well, I mean, the thing about Tyrone, he's always been colorblind that way, in the sense that he's not really interested in a person's race. He is interested in their compliance, however, or their lack of it, more importantly. I I think he saw Dirty Harry once too many times. Go ahead, punk, make my day. Although
Uh,
I thought the little encounter he had with the lady at the gift shop the other day was a little much.
hmm.
She was putting her key back in his purse, but he thought she was shoplifting. So he escorted her to the office. It's a good thing she was able to prove, she emptied out her purse. This is what I put in, was a key.
Yeah.
But if you wonder why there's so little shoplifting at the Tumbler House gift shop, of course, some of the items are too bulky. I mean, you're not going to walk out with a TV screen slipped under your jacket.
Yeah. Yes.
Or a microwave oven. You're not going to,
It's a little unusual, yeah.
it doesn't work. I've often wondered, though, why is it you don't have anything like, the things you expect, Tumbler House Tower snow globes, for instance, or back scratchers, with Tumbler House on the handle. Why do you have like toasters and
Well,
computers?
well, they're more functional, you know.
I see. All I can tell you is I never saw a gift shop quite like yours.
Yeah, it's not the type of stuff you'd buy from Etsy or something, where knickknacks
No.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
No, everything form follows function at the Tumbler House gift shop. I think it's the only gift shop I know that offers wholesale prices on bulk purchases. You don't see that in too many tourist traps, I can assure you.
Yeah, well, we really pride ourselves in our ability to move stuff,
Yeah. That's kind of the city of Arcadia motto. Arcadia, the city that moves you and your things. Oh gosh. I tell you, sometimes I miss the old place. Arcadia.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, but then
Well,
you're over there in Wonderland.
Well, I am over here in Wonderland, and despite the attacks on Christmas markets this past year, which have become very annoying, it's not that we're still angry. No, it's enchanted. I mean, looking out, you can't see it right now, but I'm looking out my window at the fabulous Cafe Vest across the street. They have all the pretty lights up and all this. So the Advent market is here. It's quite cold. It's 35 degrees right now outside.
Wow. That's
So
unbelievable.
it's near freezing. Yeah, well, it is if you're living in SoCal, but it's kind of the usual thing here. People ask me how I've adjusted to living with four seasons again, and the answer is great. I don't miss the endless summer. I gotta be honest.
The endless
I mean,
summer keeps us safe and protected.
well, yes, I can see that. I can definitely see that. I'm just looking over here at the oh, there's Binks the web elf from Nova Scotia. Two more times off the menu, says Southern Trad, and that's it. Yeah, this is it. This and the next one. That's why this is penultimate. Oh, you said as much. Boy. Good afternoon from Oregon. Forever or for the year? Oh, I'm sorry, your trumpet. Forever. Who's bemused? I'm bemused. Well, the last adjective for Charlesby. Let's take bets. You know what? They could send in suggestions.
That's a great idea. Absolutely. We totally solicit suggestions.
Yeah,
Uh,
you know, the winner gets, I don't know what do sinking ships give people. I don't know, whatever.
a call
Uh,
out, at least.
Bill Montine says, wait a minute, I haven't finished crying from your last announcement. Sorry. The world may be screwy, but thanks to this show, I now have the cocktails to cope. Domestic coffee man Bill, here to help. Binky, you're right. Who were the Jacobite candidates after Henry IX? All right, I'll deal with that. Crucified frog in Vienna. Yeah. Raise a glass of Tom and Jerry. Indeed. Oh, domestic coffee man says he picked up some rum, brandy, and eggs the other day. Binky says the Viennese bishop needs a nice rest cure in Siberia. Well, they all do. I saw the Twitter post. Yeah, I like Oreos. Me too, Wayne. All right, spicy take. Bulgarian kids rising up. Scary. These people have forfeited the confidence of the government. Yeah, that's true. Big igloo in Bulgaria. Boogaloo, Sauerman. Oh, the people working in the terrible conditions in Japan are called Sauerman. Uh, Eloi is Soylent Green. That's true. But after Rod Taylor got back to where they lived, Morlock became fresh meat. Soylent Green is Eloy. Brussels equals Oreo capital. This is anti-Morlock discrimination. Not even trying to hide it anymore. Morlock phobia. It's high time that Morlocks became vegan. Will save their undeserving existences. It's true. Just tell Granny Clampett the Yankees. She'll defend the Clampett estate. Tyrone's got nothing on the Jacobins who rule us. Uh, Tumblr House loofahs. Oompa loompa doopa dee dee. House radio. My Tumblr House radio clock broke the moment I came out of the box. The spring popped out like in Looney Tunes. Yeah, well, if you notice, it says all sales final. There's a reason for that, smart guy. Anybody know this is actually the penultimate show? We do, and it is. One more show. Sadly, it is too early for April Fools. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, reunions, Carl Anderson. Well, you never know. We might very well, please God. The magnificent Charles Coulomb. Well, I wish that were true. I still have some questions. If I ask, though, it'll ruin the flow should they deign to answer. Yeah, but you've got a Gaelic name, Ollie Foil. So, morning from Queensland. Well, good morning to you, too. Good day. And drink some of that Bundaberg rum for us. All right. I think we just got through the bulk of those guys.
Alrighty. Let's see where to turn this. Okay. I'm actually just a kind of a little announcement. Just I have access to Christoph's manuscript for his perhaps forthcoming second book, and it's quite good. I'm actually enjoying it a lot. I'm enjoying the Google Translate version right now. But
Oh,
one of the things he talks about is how much is the pursuit of happiness. And you've read this, right, Charles? I think he sent it your
yeah,
way. And
he
he
did.
talked about how many things um, young people need to be happy compared to old people. He talks about old people marveling at how much it takes for young people to be happy. And I thought that was so interesting. That had never occurred to me. Christoph is such a brilliant writer. He has all these truth bombs that and these thoughts that you've never thought of before, but when you read them, you immediately recognize them to be true in a very potent way.
This is Christophe Bouffon-Chazal, who wrote The End of Democracy,
Right.
and he's got a sequel. Has he found a publisher?
Not yet, but I'm giving it another. I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, maybe, you know, maybe I'm gonna take a shot at this. So we'll see. I don't know.
It would be you'll have more time now.
Definitely, yeah. Oh, more time.
No, it's all right. I understand.
I have better
It's
things to
okay.
do. Definitely better things to do. Sorry, Charles.
Ladies and gentlemen, I having tried to Yiddish Shemama this man his entire adult life, I'm happy it doesn't work anymore.
I've adapted.
It used to when you were like 9.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand, Vinny. It's okay. And now it's good. Glad to hear it. Oh,
But in any case, yeah. So what do you think about what Christoph is saying there? And I guess how can young people be more happy? You know, how can you get off this? Because obviously there's all this consumer stuff. Christoph says something like, what are the elements you need to be? You need to be popular. You need to be healthy. You need to be attractive. You need to be rich. You need to be successful.
well,
That's a lot. That's a lot.
well,
And we didn't used to need every single thing.
well, there are reasons to that. I think part of it's media driven because you see all these television programs and movies about rich, successful people, and you figure that's the norm. Well, it's not. Um, I was very amused by the television program, which I'd never seen when it was on the air, and I finally have, and I've got to say, it's beautiful propaganda for its cause, and that was the series Will and Grace. Well, there are 4 major characters. One is a very successful lawyer. One is an interior designer, and she's not very successful, but fortunately, her assistant is a drunken rich woman who basically provides all sorts of money and pays for her health care and gives her a Christmas bonus. As they said in one Christmas episode, when the employee, quote unquote, hands her boss the check, she says, "Here's your Christmas bonus." And she says, "Would you believe so and so down the hall?" It's an office building. Said that bosses are supposed to give out Christmas bonuses. And she goes, "Oh, forget it." She's also the one who told you they're supposed to pay for their own health care. So, I mean, obviously, this is a reality that doesn't exist anywhere and never could and never shall. Um, no rich women are that stupid, even if they're that drunk or addicted or still. I mean, it's a very well done character. She's very funny and filled with all sorts of witticisms. Uh, but I remember when the lead female character goes to AA, she comes back and she starts talking AA stuff, let go, let God, easy does it. And the assistant goes, "Who's taught you this hate speech?" And they just, "Well, I picked it up at AA. AA stands for everything, stands against everything I find to be true, pure, and beautiful." So I mean, it's a very, very funny show, but it gives you the impression, if you don't know that much about life, and you can't expect young people to know that much about life, that's something approximating reality. And it just isn't. And the truth is, I have known a few people, not many, but a few, who really were ultra rich and had all the other appurtenances. And you know what I found out? They
They're
have all
yeah. Go on.
they have all sorts of other problems that I don't have.
Yeah. It, based on your characterization of the ultra rich, I think you told
And
me
what
it's a genius to keep your money. You have to be a
uh,
genius.
you have to, yeah, well, you've got to be quite great to make it, but you've got to be a genius to keep it. Um, and then let's say you have a wife and kids. Well, how likely is it that your children are going to have the same drive that you have because they didn't have the pressures that you had to succeed? No, I mean the I have seen extremes of poverty and wealth in my life, both, and I can tell you that in a lot of ways they're not that different. I mean, it's nice not to have to worry about where your next meal is coming from, and I've had to do that from periods of my life. Um, but beyond that, uh, happiness is a question of really being happy with what you have and enjoying what you've got on its own terms. Uh, my late father used to say that rather than uh, ruining the immediate, worrying about what you don't have, learn to enjoy what you've got and to be grateful for it.
And that's you know, how do I say this well? We kind of guard our eyes from bad movies, violent movies, sexy movies, all these different things. But there's even something that seeps in a simple way in a
Yeah.
consumeristic society. Because a consumeristic society, they don't want you to be happy. It's like, oh, you need this thing, you need that thing. This is the thing that's going to complete you. Oh, this experience that you haven't, you know, um, done yet. All these other people have done it and they've loved it. Why aren't you? Why didn't you do that yet? Um,
No.
so to me, it's almost an even more basic turn off your screens situation to not to sort of insulate yourself a little bit more from some of these things. Because that's what, in other words, what I'm saying is advertisements themselves,
Oh,
especially as you're targeted. You know what I mean? There is to create that
sure.
itch. So yeah, but me being a businessman, I wonder what's the antidote? Like, what is the alternative to a consumeristic society given our current place where we are?
Well, I think in the first episode, or not first episode, the first series of the original Star Trek, the first season of the original Star Trek series, we were given a framework for happiness,
Mm.
peace in Landro, brotherhood, being one with the body. All must be one with the body. No, all right, fine. It didn't work. Uh, no, seriously, the answer. There's always been advertising, and Americans have always been great at it. I think I mentioned that Archduke Franz Ferdinand, when he was in the United States, made the observation that uh, on the one hand, Americans are filled with a wonderful energy and vitality that leads them to do all sorts of things, some of which are great. And then he says, on the other hand, they'll believe anything that's advertised. I thought, well, it's hard to argue with that because we will believe almost anything that's advertised. But like everything else in life, I don't know that there is a perfect solution. So much in life is simply a question of living with innumerable compromises.
And you know what's interesting is the time in history that we idealize the most in sort of a cultural or societal way in terms of medieval times. That happened because everything fractured.
Yeah.
Everything got destroyed. There was no current like the currency situation. Like everything got small because everything was so bad. Is that not true historically, Charles?
Well, yeah. I mean, you might not have, unless you lived through something like the sack of Rome or something, you might not have experienced it quite that way because it happened gradually. But the fact is, if you're living 200 years later, you're not living in a money society. You're living in a barter society, and you're paying your lord his rent in chickens and eggs. Uh, and he in turn is protecting you from highwaymen and robbers. And then the two of you together are maintaining the king's peace. Well, um, but on the other hand, you don't really know any different either. Uh, I mean, one thing you've got to bear in mind when you're trying to compare stuff is that so much in life is about one's expectations. One reason why boomers are always kind of annoyed at everybody is because we grew up under in an artificially well-to-do time. We had an economy that was basically powered by the Cold War, and most of our fathers were able to make a good deal of money and lead lives that we were not capable of sustaining when we grew up, when it came our time to bat, and also the culture had changed. I think I told you one of my relatively recent, within the last 10 years, experiences. Before, I think not long before I left for here, it might have been on a trip back, but I think it was within a year of my departure beforehand. But I took the Metches, I think you know them, uh, but they're my age anyway. The three of us went out to the fabulous Delray in beautiful Pico Rivera, California. Well, then as now, the Delray is very self-consciously trapped in 1947 when it was founded. It's not leaving. You don't like it. Great. There's a McDonald's, a couple blocks down. You go bother them. That's the Delray. It's a wonderful restaurant. Very, very good food, very good people, and so on, in the hands of the original family that opened it. Well, why do I mention the Delray? I mention it because we went there, the three of us, and we had a very delicious soup, followed by tableside Caesar salad, with the waiter making the dressing in front of us and cracking the egg and doing everything that used to be done at any fine restaurant in days gone by. Stirs it up, serves the lettuce, pours the dressing made in front of us. Delicious. We have that. And then the next course was steak Diane. Again, out comes the tray with the waiter. Out come the little skillets. The meat is carefully cooked and then set aside. Then the drippings are there, and he adds all sorts of things to it. Stirs it all up, puts the meat and the mushrooms on our plates, and then applies the Diane sauce. And of course, flambe. Can't forget the flambe bit. And then the same with the Cherries Jubilee for dessert. Well, the lady of the duo says to me, this feels so, it feels, it's like I said to her, this is the way when we were kids, we thought it would be like when we were grown-ups. And she goes, yes, that's exactly what it is. This is the way my parents ate. And I said, I know. It's the way most of our parents ate. And by the time we got to be their age, in most places, poof, Because in our parents' time, due to the artificially raised standard of living, middle class people were able to enjoy things that only the wealthy had enjoyed before. And the culture was different. So for my parents, dinner and dancing was something that they would, well, for your parents, who can forget they're coming home? I'm going to say at all hours, even though that's actually not true. They've never been night owls, but you remember they used to come home from the trails. The
Right.
which was, I mean, they didn't have tableside service, but they were the same sort of genre of dinner and dancing. And there were tons of places in our area like that. The Derby used to be like that, and I'm grateful we still have it. But you remember they had a piano bar and everything?
They don't anymore?
Oh God, no, no, they haven't had the piano bar in years. And oh heavens, what was that place out in Azusa Canyon? Uh, it
I
was what? Hmm?
I don't remember.
It was out in Azusa Canyon. It is, gosh, if I don't do this now, it's going to bother me. Not Crystal Lake Cafe, not Rustic Canyon. It's uh, closed. That one. Oh man, this is annoying. El Encanto, that was it.
Mm.
El Encanto.
Right.
It. Oh, and look what just popped up. Sadly enough, the El Encanto de Azusa closes its doors after 80 years.
Hmm. Wow.
That was in 2004. Man, El Encanto.
Hmm.
So why do I mention all this? Well, I mention it because young people, when you look at the older folk, bear in mind, especially those of us who aren't in power. Oh, I'm sorry, did that slip out? It was a load of disappointment, of unrealized hopes and dreams that kind of fuel the bitterness. Don't be that way. My joke, when I was in my early to mid 20s, all the way into my 30s, my joke was that our parents could expect to lead a middle class lifestyle, take vacations, save money for their retirement, and put us through school. Now, said I then, and we're talking about the 90s of the last century, now any of us can do any one of those things.
Yeah,
Now
same.
that was then. For you guys, it's a lot worse.
Right. Home ownership is kind of the biggest thing for me,
Yeah,
especially in California. Um, yeah. So,
yeah.
well, we're gonna have to
Well, it's,
learn how to be
let me
happy with
just
less, I guess.
the new normal. But let's see. Why don't we do this? Let me run through what we got, what we lined up, and then let's do some questions, shall we?
Are you talking about responding to live chat?
Yeah, I'm looking at live chat as we speak. Uh, Christoph Elner has asked me when the last time I was at Ischel. That's a good question. It's been a year or two. It's been too long. I love Ischel. Uh, Suburban Catholic, I'm sorry, you'll never be happy again. I'll never smile again. Uh, you're in the basement of the tower. You're added helpfully. 6 cars. I checked off 0 boxes. That's very good. Afternoon from Arizona. Guard your guys from Instagram envy. Very good. Binks. We have the material, but nothing more. Vinny's volume is pretty low. You'll try to fix it. You'll speak louder. Medieval Times is one of my favorite restaurants. Mine too. My team was the Blue Knight. It's I knew it was very good. As populations collapse the world over, we are going to learn to live with less. Well, that's true. Compared with Alaric's sack of Rome, we're doing okay, Carl. That's also true. And remember, our ancestors lived through the Black Plague. 3/4 of the neighborhood dying out, and yet great great grandma and great great grandpa managed. Steak Diane is delicious. It is. Scotch, bourbon, Irish, or brandy. Boy, I'd take any of them but bourbon. Uh, the British Empire has a lot of similarities with Rome. Well, it could be. Japanese whiskey over Maker's Mark. I'm sorry. Uh, Now, there's a good question. When I was in high school, I was told the British were 40 years ahead of us socially, as they look at their society now to see our future. What say Vincent and Charles? Well, I say, as the joke that our leadership, certainly Britain, has this difficulty. 1984 was not really a how-to book; it was a cautionary tale, and they're really into that. They're hateful scumbags. I mean that in a nice way. We need to live in a box in the middle of the road. I agree. Pink and rose in the same color. Don't tell that to old Rose. She would get very upset with you. The carparium is the center of the tumbler tower. Parlissimos, thank you for answering the Bourbon Habsburg question correctly, by the way. You're very welcome. Reload for volume, says Binks.
I think there's some technical difficulties, so yeah, just reload. I had to reload as well. I think that's YouTube. All right.
So anyway, we're caught up with our live listeners. Let's do it to it.
Let's do it to it. Okay. Cue the Great and Terrible. Love that name. I feel like I've seen you before though, Q. Because I feel like is that a reference to Star Trek? I feel like
what is it?
Q the Great and Terrible.
Doesn't say anything to me offhand.
Well, Q is a Star Trek. I mean, you know the Star Trek character Q, right?
I do not. Oh, yes, I do. I do indeed. But he's not from the original series.
He's not original series, right? He's next generation. He got introduced in Next Generation.
He was an android, right?
No. Man, Q's a fan favorite. He kind of has god powers a little bit. He's pretty. He's a very colorful character.
Well, all right, then I don't know who he is, and I see.
Oh, no.
No, I've never. No, it's true. I've never seen him before. There he is. He's portrayed by John Delancey, an extra-dimensional being. Wow. Now, there is an adjective we've never used. Extra-dimensional.
That's a good one.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that for the last one. Encounter at Fairpoint was his first appearance. His last was Wedding Bell Blues, 2025. So he's around with us. He's a major antagonist of the next generation. A cosmic force judging humanity to see as becoming a threat to the university. But he becomes more nice. And he's portrayed by John Delancey, who was born in 1948. He's 77. God, Moses.
Yeah. Wayland says Q is a Bond character. I'm not familiar with that one, but it's possible.
That Q is the boss man.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So, okay. All right, in any case, Q says to His Serenity Don Vincenzo and the Eldritch Sir Charles Coulomb, I'm a long-time listener, first-time questioner, and proud gardener this past year. I have two questions. First, Charles has spoken many times about people like Tam Lin, who were taken prisoner by the Queen of the Fairies. I was recently reading about how Charlemagne's paladin, how do you say this, Ogier, the Dane, also supposedly spent decades living without aging in fairyland. Does Charles know of any stories where one of these captives or residents succumbs and marries the fairy queen? Would such a marriage be valid or illicit, presuming a valid minister could be found out? Circumstances were such where one would not be required. What an epic question.
You you really saved the best for last, and this is very much an off the menu kind of thing.
This is
Does
perfect.
canon law
That's
does
just
canon law apply in fairyland? Are in fact elves governed by okay, well, firstly, since it's highly unlikely the Queen of Faery or any elf for that matter is baptized, they would be the same as marrying a pagan. So that would mean that they can apply the Petrine privilege, So if ever one of them, if ever she converts and wants to dump him, she'd be able to do it after she's baptized. And then the Pauline privilege, I think, would allow him to dump her. Anyway, I could have it confused. Doesn't matter. Point is, if such creatures exist, we always want to begin with the big if. Although having lived in Southern California, I've seen many fairies in my day. Especially, anyway, never mind. Point is that seriously, it's an interesting question. There are several families in Europe, quite a number actually, that claim to have fairy blood. So, according to the folklore and according to Sinistrari, the great theologian of Faery, it is possible for us to interbreed with them. Now, if that's true, then of course it's possible for us to marry them, in one sense, anyway. Most of the stories don't end well. In other words, the fairy partner, usually when they get married, they lay down certain laws, certain rules. And generally there are three of them. They're this, that, and the other. And when all three are broken, they usually have to leave, leaving their husband and their half-elven children behind. So I would suspect that the church would have a hard time regarding the marriage is necessarily valid. Especially, I mean, we don't know how long they live, but if they are immortal, what meaning does death do you part have?
Oh.
I mean, yeah, it works for the human partner. If they aren't immortal, well, so a little bit like Bewitched, I guess. Be elved, be fairied.
Hmm.
It and really in a lot of ways, witches in Bewitched were a lot like the elves are supposed to be. More than actual witches of folklore. The witches in Bewitched were actually a lot like the elves, in the sense that they were not mortal, at least not conventionally mortal, and they were another race entirely. They were not marginal people giving their souls to Satan for magical power, but another race who lived in a certain sense in a different reality. So that was one of the bizarre things about the witches of Bewitched.
Hmm. All right, we've got a question in chat. That's a nice sort of segue. Joseph says, "Dear Vincent and Charles, how was the heresy of modernism impacted, or how has it impacted the church's teaching on marriage?"
The I'm saying we're how is the well, I mean, it's let's just put it this way. It's brought all sorts of issues up in the annulment process that might not have been necessarily seen as important before. Um, but since I'm here looking, thoughts on the Serene Republic of Venice, Charles? Yeah, it was an aristocratic oligarchy, and ultimately under a monarchy, whether that monarch was the Byzantine and the Holy Roman Emperor. Could Charles give an opinion on the Enoch Burke situation in Ireland, if able? Oh my gosh, absolute horror. Total example of the scumbags of the Oreos flexing their little rear ends or whatever it is they think with.
What happened?
What happened was that there was this teacher in Ireland called Enoch Burke, not to be confused with Shadrach Ireland of New Light cult fame. Enoch Burke was a teacher, and one of the kids in his class decided that they had different pronouns. They were not to be called he or him, but they, them, etc. Well, Mr. Burke refused to do this. And the Irish state, the free Irish state that had saved itself from British tyranny, threw him into jail. And he's in jail now because he refuses to use pronouns other than he and she. Oh, Sinn Féin, where are you now, Sinn Féin? Ourselves alone. Yeah, I wish it were yourselves alone. So this is the Enoch Burke case, and he's facing a trial tomorrow.
He's in jail because he didn't use pronouns?
Yep. God save Ireland, cried the heroes. God save Ireland, cried them all. Whether on the scaffold high or the battlefield we die, oh, what matter if for Ireland we fall? You know, whether you're an Irish nationalist or you're an Irish unionist, this should be the kind of thing that brings you together. You know? I mean, if the men of 16 and the British soldiers they were fighting could be magically transported to Dublin today, they'd turn their guns on the government together. I don't know what they would do afterwards, but they'd make quick work of the little trollop people that are running Ireland now. And Miss Connolly, the new president. Oh, what a piece of joy she is. Calm down, Charles. If I didn't love Ireland so much, I wouldn't hate this so much.
Blinky says Ireland took all his savings too. How does that work?
They just seize your bank account. Boom. See, they're monsters. They're dictators. They're everything they ever accused either the British or the Nazis or the Queen of Sheba of being. And I mean, these creatures, it's like little Justine Trudeau and the Defense of the Realm Act against the truckers during COVID. When you're run by garbage, when slime are the masters, this is what happens. Calm down, Charles. It's all right. Relax. Wayland Bustephanus, you were right. M is the boss man. Q is the gadgets maker. I needed to look at something else. The whole Burke thing drives me mad. Charles, could you roughly map the most important places of Europe into America and vice versa randomly? NYC is American Venice, Paris is European Lima. Oh gosh, that's hard. That is really, really hard. I wouldn't know where to begin except that Boston or Philadelphia would be the American Oxford, maybe. That's tough, though. Marrying my mother, the carp. I like that. Keep her in the bathtub, pal.
Yeah, Phil.
Who were the, what's that?
Yeah, Phil's obsessed with the carp.
Yeah.
Fine.
No, it's fine. It did more damage than the Boogaloo. Charles is carping as usual. Glad so to do. Thanks to the show. There was one line, though. Who were the Jacobite claimants after Henry IX? Well, they were the House of Savoy. And then when the main line died out with Charles Felix in 1837, I think, his daughter had married the Duke of Modena. They had the claim for a couple of generations. They died out of the male line. The oldest daughter married the Crown Prince of Bavaria. And it's been with the Wittelsbachs to the present. When the current one dies, his brother will inherit his claims to the British, Irish thrones. He dies. The brother has no sons, so the cousin will claim the Bavarian throne. But his daughter is married to the Prince of Liechtenstein, and so it'll go to Liechtenstein's. Uh,
All right, big
until
donation. The
oh, do you have
questions
any
usually.
particular?
Yeah.
Yeah, son, if you got the money, I got the time. What I've been saying. Do you know of any particular Catholic traditions and where to find them? For those of those of us of Gaelic, Highland Irish descent, to incorporate back into personal life. I'd like to be as Gael as my ancestors. P.S. Laurel Highlands, Pennsylvania here. Oh, that's a huge, huge thing. You'd have to learn the language for starters. And oddly enough, Scots Gaelic is still spoken in Nova Scotia and in Eastern Ontario. And then Irish Gaelic is still spoken in Newfoundland, I think, maybe. But if you're anywhere near New York or Philadelphia, you can probably find classes. So that's the first thing. And then there are tons of books about Irish and Scots customs. The Irish Year will tell you a lot about the Irish Year. And there was a 4-part series called The Silver Bow that goes into Scots customs. So I think that's a good thing. When will the leprechauns get disgusted and take Ireland back? Oh, please, sooner rather than later. But yeah, the look up. You know, it's funny. There was in Los Angeles, there was a Celtic Arts Center, and if you're anywhere near Laurel Highlands, I guess Philly, there's a St. Andrew's Societies and St. Patrick's Societies in Philly, so you might look in that direction as well. Yeah, there's a Binky points out there's a Gaelic College in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and Binky would know. Not only is he a web elf, but he not only is he a web elf, but he's Nova Scotian. So
I still don't understand the savings account thing. How can the law leave enough room for that to happen?
fascism,
Yeah, where's Antifa when you need them?
being paid off by their owners, of course. You know,
Eh,
eh,
Isn't that funny though? Like no one asked, "Hey, where the hell is the ACLU during COVID?"
well, in Ireland, of course, they weren't anywhere, and there is no ICLU because that would take brains. But no, I mean it's the whole thing is insufferable, and this playing with bank accounts is very common on this side of the pond.
Really?
Oh yes, oh yes. That's why I'm happy I'm poor. They could seize my accounts. It would cost them more to seize them than to leave them. Idiots, scumbags. I mean, utter pieces of garbage. You know.
Yeah.
And see, they're doing this because they're afraid. The little boo boo ones, all they have is power. The Oreos. That's all they have is power. And you know, that sounds like a lot when you don't have it. When you do have it, it's like money. There's never enough. You can never have enough control. You can never have enough power, especially if you're a piece of garbage. It's not so bad if you're born to it or bred to it or have uh, some sort of natural virtue. But if you're a piece of garbage and you're in power, then there can't be enough because you're always insecure. Because at the back of your little pointed head is the knowledge you shouldn't be there. And there's the fear that someday they're going to come and take it from you because you know they should. You know you should be ripped out of your place of power, dumped in the street, and kicked around like Eloi going after a Morlock in the daytime.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
I
and that gives you this insecurity. So you do everything you can because the Eloi are going to get me.
yeah, I used to wonder about these senators and these congressmen. Like, why don't they just retire? They're in their 80s. I think maybe even 90s sometimes. Nancy Pelosi's
Because,
85.
Yeah, and looks every age of it, every day of it.
I actually think she looks pretty good for 85, to be honest. But
Yeah, well, if you were 3/4 silicone, you would too. But no, I mean, the truth of the matter is that they can't let go because they're basically frightened. I mean, it's like with any bully. What what is behind the bully's bullying? It's cowardice. A strong man does not have to be a bully. A strong man is secure within himself. He knows who he is. He doesn't have to impress anybody. He doesn't have to show everyone, look at me. I am the master of all I say. He doesn't need that.
hmm.
I mean, mutatis mutandis. That's why they always used to talk about the difference between old money and the nouveau riche. And the nouveau riche were, again, these are stereotypes, but the nouveau riche were considered vulgar and, displaying their wealth. Whereas old money, dressed cheaply and, I mean, they dressed well, but not flashy. And very often, things like cars and so on, they drive heaps. I mean, forget the family limousine. The car the fellow uses to drive around the estate, it's a wreck. He doesn't need to. He's got nobody to impress. Why should he? Well, so it is with the bully. Every bully is a coward waiting to be found out.
I believe that.
Of course, all of us are cowards to a greater or lesser degree. But the trick is that accepting that about oneself, one doesn't throw one's weight around. When you are in charge, when you are in power, you've got to show your greatness. And I mean, some of this you'll show in wild building projects if you're in charge. I think your Mussolini's Via della Conciliazione, which is a beautiful street. And I mean, I can't fault his taste. But, he had to tear up one of the oldest neighborhoods in Rome to build the thing. And mind you, it was a beautiful result. I'm not going to, I can't say it wasn't. It's like with a lot of the New Deal stuff. Uh, these were all make work things. They're very, very beautiful, a lot of them. I'm grateful they exist. But anyway, the point of it is that this is the Irish state's way of saying we're weak, we're cowardly, we're cruel, we're nasty. But fortunately, we're in power, so there's nothing you can do about it. Eat it. That's their message to all and sundry. And of course, they're making an example of Enoch Burke. Fall into line and we'll do this to you too.
Beautiful. All right. Another question from Q the Great and Terrible. He says, and since I mentioned, what is it, Ogier the Dane, would Charles kindly wax poetic about the matter of France? I read the Song of Roland over the summer, and it's got me thinking. What other gems from this area is Charles hiding from us? Charles, I don't understand why you won't let it be known. The Song of Roland. Why won't you let it be known?
It's a wonderful story. You know what? All right, smart people.
Great reference.
You know
Q.
what?
Great reference.
You know what? All right, this is what I'm going to do. The Song of Roland, all about Charlemagne's nephew who commanded the rear guard as they were coming back from Spain. To show you how I feel about people making that kind of challenge, I'm going to go online right now and see if I can find the best version online for you guys. And then I don't ever want to hear people saying I was hiding it from you. Well, I'm torn. Do I want to give you Moncrief's translation or Dorothy Sayers? I'll give you Dorothy Sayers. She was a great writer. So, all right. Now I'm going to go back to you, my dear friends. I am going to go to chat for you, not for the gang, but for you specifically. There. I've sent you a link. And I've always liked Charles's story of the bully, his dad, and $15. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too, and it's a perfect illustration of the principle of the bully is coward. Carl Anderson says this show has helped me through some hard times. I feel a deep sense of loss. God bless you both. Well, keep praying for us. You never know what'll happen.
Oh, sorry about that. I was on mute. I posted the link in the chat for everyone who wanted Charles's link, and then I'll put it in the description as well.
And I read Carl Anderson's thing about missing us.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to miss you guys too, more than I can tell you. And yeah, well, anyway, let's go to the next question. I don't want to get weepy. We'll save that for next time.
All right. Let's get a question from Vonday Radio.
Okay.
It says, "Dear Charles, can you tell the story of Port Marly in 1987? Does this offer a model of Catholic resistance post Traditionis Custodes?" Are you
Port
familiar?
Marly, yes, I actually if I remember, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say before I go to make sure I know what I'm talking about. But if I remember correctly, Port Marly was a church where the Latin Mass had been said. The bishop shut it down, and then the laity forcibly reopened it. Now let's see if that was true and if I know what I'm talking about. If then I'll comment if it turns out I do know what I'm talking about. Port Riley, 1987. The Church of St. Louis. Yeah, they broke down the entrance to their church, which had been bricked shut by the bishop due to their desire to retain the traditional mass. The bishop had the police drag out a priest and women and children. Yeah, a French parish takes to barricades. That was in Palm Sunday. Cleared by the police a few weeks before and walled up to prevent parishioners from living their faith according to the rhythm of the traditional liturgy. I'm curious as to where they are now. So let's see. Église St. Louis. Of course, bishops love closing churches, you know. Again, they feel strong and powerful, like they mean something. Okay. In 1985, 1984. Translate to English. So it remains, it's now under the Institute of Christ the King, Sovereign Priest. Great. A mass of reconciliation was held on November 11th. The mayor, presence of the mayor, the regular parish priest, and the traditionalist priest. So, like Saint Nicolas de Chardonnay in Paris, which happened in the 70s. I remember that very well. All I can say is maybe, you know, it depends. Again, if you look at the same sort of people being in charge in church and state, what do they respond to? These Oreos. You know, again, they're cowards. I mean, would I recommend violence, law breaking? I wouldn't. But the problem is when the law is used to destroy, the body politic to destroy the common good. Rather than its function, what kind of law is it? I said this, I think, on the show before, but my late father used to say that during Al Capone's reign of terror in Chicago, the Chicago Municipal Code was still in force. The Capone and his guys might have been murdering people right, left, and center, but there were still parking tickets being issued. And boy, you better pay them. Some things don't change. They really don't. Human nature is always the same ball of garbage that we always are. So I would say it all depends on the situation. I'm not what you would call a situation ethics man by any stretch. But what will cause the most pain to those in power? When they get bad, they have to be punished, but you've got to punish them carefully. You've got to punish them where it'll cause them some real hurt, and they'll back off. It worked in France. One of the reasons why it worked in France, both with Saint Nicolas and Port Marly, is that the church doesn't own the churches. They're owned by the local city, by the town. And so as a result, if the mayor decides, or the local civil authority decide, you know what, the trans want this, they're going to go out of their way, it's theirs, they can have it. Now, obviously, in the United States, it's a different thing. There, the property is all owned, for the most part, by the bishop. That's what we call corporation sole. So when the bishop says, get out of my church, it is his property. He has that right under the law. Now, he doesn't have the right under the law to tax you or to tithe you. So you do have the right to display all kinds of money he's not getting.
Yeah, I mean, isn't there something to be said for simony?
Well, I mean, it's the only thing some bishops understand. You remember the story with your brother?
Oh yeah. Well, it's the Franchini way. I mean.
Yeah, it sure was. Do you think Steve would mind if I told this story?
I don't think so at all.
All right, especially because Father Marx is dead. They can't do anything to him now.
Yeah.
Well, basically, it was like this. When Vinny's brother was going to get married, La Cardinala herself had declared that in Los Angeles Archdiocese, this is before Summorum Pontificum, and before trash can custodians was even a glint in the devil's eye. Back then, the cardinal said there will be no Trinity nuptial masses in this archdiocese. However, Vinny's brother had fallen in love with a Peruvian lady. Well, that wasn't the big deal. The big deal was she lived in a different diocese, San Bernardino. And there, the bishop said, we'll permit him for pastoral reasons. So your brother says, what does he mean, pastoral reasons? And I said, well, what he means is he wants money. So what you do...
Pastoral reasons, yeah.
Pastoral reasons. Fleece the sheep, just like it says in the gospel. Fleece my sheep. Isn't that what our Lord told Peter? Peter, fleece my sheep. Isn't that what he said? I thought, that's what I got out of that. Anyway, so I told your brother, I said, write him a letter, write the bishop a letter. Now, don't say anything about religion because he won't understand. He'll get, confused because he doesn't know about that stuff. What you do is you point out to him that your family are Italian, Magyar, and Slovak, all true. Her family are Peruvian, and that a Latin mass would be a great way to bring them all together. Then I said, include a $100 check. Now, don't mention the check in the letter, just include it. If he cashes it, you will get your permission. He cashed it. They got the permission.
So stupid.
Well,
Father
Marx.
Yeah.
Well, I know how these people work. You can spit at them or beat them or lick their feet or pay them or, when your masters are in charge, you do whatever you have to do to deal with them. Just, don't make the mistake of thinking that they like you. if anything, you get in the way. But at any rate, so the mass is beautiful, as you'll recall. It was a lovely Franchini family thing. There were no fights. I think I only heard "Let's go to the mattresses" like once or twice, and that was in a friendly, drunken manner. I don't think anyone meant it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the
And
Manicotis were well behaved.
they were extremely well behaved. I mean, they were on their best behavior, which was good. Never mind. I don't want to dig up old wounds. Anyway, the Manicotis came from their side of the river, and they were perfectly well behaved, almost like real gentlemen, and I was impressed. But I even had a drink with Giacomo Manicotti, and we have a bad history here now. So anyhow, point is that when it was all over, Father Marx, who was the priest who had said it, was as the pastor of your sister-in-law. He really, really had a grand time. He really enjoyed it. So he convinced the next couple who were coming up to get married that was what they wanted. And he asked for permission directly and was turned down. And he raged to me. He was in outrage. He says, I don't get it. I'm a priest of this diocese for 40 years or however long it was. And your friend comes waltzing in here and gets it like that. I've done everything I've done, and they tell me no. And I said, Father, did you include a check with your request? He goes, no, of course not. That would have been, I said, it would have been simony. It's an old tradition of the church. It goes all the way back to the time of the apostles. And Father Marx was not the slightest bit comforted.
You know, those are my favorite stories. I mean, you have a handful of them where you're telling very holy priests the facts of life that they just
Yeah, and they never somehow they always look at me like, what a horrible thing to say. Well, I don't know what you want me to tell you, Father.
They're just too pure and innocent. You just
I just don't get it. Why are you so upset? He was really to be kind, and he did. In the end, he settled down and he laughed a little. But he said, I wish I could say you were wrong. And that is a line I picked up from him, and I've used it ever since. I wish I could say you were wrong.
Yeah,
It's a good line.
AM wants he wants a story about the priest playing the race cars. So Father Bishop, which is also that's a fave. I mean, that's what I was referencing too.
Well, basically, the priest who had been the indult priest for years, and of course the funny thing was when the indult started, La Cardinala gave us a different station per month. In other words, it was like a rota. They couldn't sit in one place; they had to follow it around, and they were in non-parish churches. He would have loved trash can custodians. I'm sure when it came out, he bathed in it or something. Anyway. It was really too bad for him that he was out of power when Trash Can Custodians was issued, because he would have just. At last, vindication. Anyhow, so he stuck us in this deal. Originally, you weren't allowed to go, supposedly, if you were younger than a certain age. And this being 1985, I was 24. Would you believe one rather silly person tried to stop me? That did not end well for him.
Wow.
Sad, sad, sad. And I was short and scrawny in those days. Now I'm short and fat. But I tell you what, he got me so angry. And I whispered in his ear, I said, if you want to try to stop me, you go right ahead, but it won't end well for you. Now, of course, I am not a man of violence, but he had so pissed me off. And it wouldn't have ended well. I don't mean I'd have beaten him up. I probably would have had a hard time doing that. I'm too nice. But the whole thing would have been a ridiculous affair if he had pursued it. And, when you have enough menace and malice in your voice, people, if they're cowards, would generally back down. He was a coward. So, anyway, there were 4 different priests originally for this mass. But, one by one, they died or retired. And Father Bishop, one by one, took up their places until he was doing all of them. Now, Father Bishop was black. He was a convert and a really wonderful priest. I mean, our nickname for him in the family was our spirit guide, which he did not appreciate at all. But he was a great fellow. So, at any rate, one day he was being pressured by La Cardinala one way or another for something or other. And I said to him, and he was going on about it, I said, Father, you've got to play the race card. And he looked at me and he said, I have spent my entire career as a priest not playing the race card. I said, I know that, Father. But God did not make you black for nothing. He gave you an important weapon, the only one that this creature will understand. So I'm telling you, when you go to see him, before he starts doing his shrieking, because the cardinal was famous for what we call the midnight missals. He'd call a priest in very often after midnight and do the whole Hitler at Berchtesgaden shrieking thing. Although it was not just after midnight. Sometimes he'd throw tantrums in public. Anyway, so he went. And to my undying happiness, he played the race card. And the little cartilageural mouth went clo-clo. I knew it would. Cowards at the bottom of it all. Cowards. And if they don't have power over you for whatever reason, see, that's why I never try to throw my weight around or push people around. Because you know what? I'm a coward too. I know it. But self-acceptance is the key to mental health. If the rulers of Ireland and half of our bishops would accept that about themselves, they wouldn't be such nasty little worthless turd creatures. They would be decent human beings. But fortunately, it's a realization they'll never have. Anyhow, that's the Father Bishop story. So he played the race card. The other thing, though, thinking of him, another time the mass was going on, and you know how he was. It was perfect. Everything, and when he was into the mass, he was into nothing else. You could have babies shrieking. You could have you could have the phones zippering. Anything could be going on. He paid no attention. He was there for the mass. That was his thing. One day, everything was wrong about it. It's just everything. And then a phone goes off in the middle of mass, and he stops and waits until the phone's turned off. And I thought, something's not very pretty here. So afterwards, after mass, I go to him and I said, Father, I had a question for you. He goes, what's that? Is everything okay? And he began to say, yeah. And he goes, yeah. No. You know what, Charles? Everything is not okay. In fact, everything stinks. And from Father Bishop, as you remember getting that, you're like, huh, what?
That's unbelievable. I can't even believe he ever talked like that.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So I said, okay, Father, would lunch at Taylor's on Wednesday help? He said, yeah, lunch at Taylor's on Wednesday would help a lot. I said, great, let's do it. Well, Taylor's is an old steakhouse. There are 2 locations, one in beautiful La Cañada, the other on 8th, which is my favorite of the 2, although I like them both. Much was ordered to by archdiocesan people for steak and cocktails, and that's what we had, oddly enough. So after a cocktail, I said, all right, Father, spill the beans. What's wrong? I said, well, I'll tell you. I had a very hard time getting through my orders seminary in the mid-60s. Anybody Orthodox, they put the screws on, and if it hadn't been for my color, I wouldn't have made it through. Well, they've just put me in charge of my orders retirement home. And now I have to deal with a lot of the same old dogs that were my professors and made my life hell. And it is driving me absolutely crazy. I can't stand them. I said, Father, don't you fret. Don't you fret. I got you covered. What do you mean? I said, well, do you have a community movie night where you show the old timers a film, maybe once a week or whatever? He goes, yeah, yeah. Show them whatever happened to Baby Jane. Well, he roared. He says, I can't possibly do that, but even thinking about it makes me feel so much better. Thank you very much. And that actually did lift his dispirited. He said all he had to do was imagine showing them whatever happened to Baby Jane, and all his anger would vanish. Well, there's something about seeing an old caregiver go crazy and handing you cooked rat that makes you think maybe I better be kinder to my caregiver.
Oh man.
So yeah, that let's see, what do we got here? How many clerical sermons we have? Tons.
There's
Let me
a lot of questions floating in chat. If you scroll up higher, I'll leave it to you to decide how you want to handle some of these.
Being ruled by traitors is punishment for apostasy. I'll give you that. You bet. Boomers never retire; they just gain weight. Yeah, well, personal comment there, pal. Thanks. Some people like to drown their Oreos in milk. Well, yeah, that would be good. Uh, let's see. What a lovely prelate. Yeah, she sure was. The video of seeing battering the door while singing. This is about Marley Leroy. While singing Christus Vinci, Christus Regnat, Christus Imperat. At the top of their lungs, incredibly epic. Yeah, it sure was. It sure was. Vincent, thank you. The Globalist Chronicle. I like that name. Thank you for your work. What will the last episode be and at what time? Well, roughly this time, 2 weeks from now, I guess. Is there a strong argument that boomerism has become an ideology as well as a generation? Yeah, I would say so. Binks says to us, a parish priest here in Nova Scotia was going to V2. I like that. As Jamie Bogle put it to me years ago, there's no noun you can't verb. So a parish priest here in NS was going to V2 the altar railing and statues. 20 laymen with bats and axes chased him off, defending the altar. Yeah, they I can see where he would pick up on that. He'd read the room a little bit. Yeah, I could get into that. Sam Francis referred to this as a narco-tyranny. Tyranny for the law-abiding while the dregs get to run amok. Right is wrong. Right. There should be a book, The Franchini Way. Yeah, it'd be published in Chicago. Not all lucre is filthy. Charles, what do you think of Joseph Roth's portrayal of pre-World War I Austria at Radetzky March? Do you think Roth's story of a debauched and decadent society was warranted? Yeah, to a degree, but every society is debauched and decadent if you know where to look. And I'm not even being funny. There is not a sin you can think of that has not existed from the beginning. But certainly, it's fair to say pre-World War I Austria was very tolerant of a lot. And when you're tolerant of a lot, very often decadence and debauchery will flourish. But it certainly wasn't ancient Rome or even modern Los Angeles by any stretch at all. We would consider it very straight-laced. I mean, they had a secret police, they had a censorship. It certainly wasn't Oliver Cromwell either. So Let me see. Tuning in late. Is this the last episode? Nope, nope. It's not the last episode. Don't worry. That's next 2 weeks hence. Tell the story of the priest about getting to play the race card. I did. The stone of I already said you. I already. I did. You weren't listening. It's okay. It's all right. No, no. I don't. I understand. Your attention wandered. I get it. I love the Christmas ghost story Charles made up that had Vincent hooked. Well, it did, but to be fair, it also got the members of the LA Breakfast Club. So don't worry. Not to be confused with Bishop Father.
I was definitely not alone in that. I feel like everyone was with me on that. I mean, that was Charles's best acting job ever, and I mean like come on, I'm not alone on that. Let's be real, Carl.
No, well, and as I say, the whole of the LA Breakfast Club, and they're not stupid people by any stretch. A few Destiny Stones, primarily of Argyle descent, Scud is prominent, but to me, it's less about the physical rock and more the concept. Bishop Gollum, Archbishop Warrington, how many clerical sermons do we have? That was the parish church of Cheticon, Cape Breton. Oh, they were French. Ah ha ha, Acadians. You see, Binks? It helps to be Acadian. Well said on the Austrian Empire. Thanks for answering that worthy question. Such good memories. Yes, and we're not quite done with them yet. We have a few more memories to make before we're done.
Oh, yeah. All right, Charles. Is that going to do it?
I don't know. You got any more questions?
I can cook up some questions for you. I have one from very heartfelt one from Michael, superfan Michael, who's a patron.
Yeah.
He says, "Dear Vincent and Charles, well, the days of wine and roses are over. I, for one, am greatly deflated at the news you two will be going off the air. The two of you have seen me through high school, college, countless campaigns for office, two of which where I was a candidate, a relationship and a breakup, the death of my grandparents, and all the goings on of the world. Sincere thanks for a job well done. Whether it was while I was catching 4 trains a day to get my bachelor's degree, long car rides to events or to work, or simply a late night with a hot cup of tea, the two of you have been a source of knowledge, wisdom, and comfort. Currently discerning whether to get a master's or go to law school, potentially even both, and so ask for your prayers since I won't be able to truck along with you in the way I have these past 10 years. I will always carry with me, and God willing impart, the lessons and quips I picked up from you two. I was and will be a better student, a better friend, a better son, a better Catholic, and God willing, a better husband, father, and politician, in large part to you both. You have helped show me that true success is not how many votes someone wins by, how much money someone makes, or how many things bear one's name. You have my eternal respect, appreciation, and love. God bless you both." Gosh, that's what a beautiful. Ugh.
Yeah,
I got
gosh,
the
thank you.
feels. I got the feels.
Yeah, it's the waterworks are getting ready,
Oh no.
but
Yeah.
I really appreciate. I'm we're not there yet. I usually say the waterworks for mafia funeral, family funerals.
Yeah.
Sorry, family funerals. No, honestly, what can I tell you? It's this sort of thing that has kept us going all these years. Our public, knowing that we were trying to shed a little bit of light amidst the darkness, without ignoring the darkness, without pretending it wasn't there. It is, but the light will always be more powerful. Even in the racks of Mordor, there was a star shining. And Samwise looked up, and he realized that there was beauty that far beyond the shadow could never touch. That's a misquotation, but it's right enough. I think one thing we've always tried to do in this show is try to point at that star to let you know that it's not all horror, it's not all awful. And a lot of it is. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of scumbags running the show and a lot of nonsense. But they will pass. They will pass, and animals will use their graves for latrines, and life will go on. And they can be frustrating and annoying. Okay, without a doubt. It's better to laugh at them than to hate them because that's what the devil wants us to do. But even that should be a minority of our attention. We should always remember the good that's in the world. We should always, cling to our friends and relations, to everything that is decent and wonderful, even to schmaltz, even to schmaltz. And again, especially in this Christmas season, Christmas will have come and gone by the time we do our last show, and we'll be staring the bright baby New Year of 2026 in the face with lots of horror and trepidation. But enjoy these days of Christmas. Try to keep the 12, and to somehow keep it going on to Candlemas or Mardi Gras. And then Lent and Easter, and so it goes, and so it goes. Don't let yourself be drowned by the horror and by the hatred. When you see something like Enoch Burke, it's enough to want to make you drop a bomb somewhere without a doubt. But you can't let yourself be completely caught up in it. You've got to operate in a world that's like that. If you were Irish, you'd be living under a government that is capable of doing that. So you've got to speak the truth. You've got to say, stop. How did we get a government like this? Mm. And if we were to do it to them, how would they enjoy it? How would President Connolly enjoy having her accounts frozen because she campaigned for infanticide? I think she wouldn't appreciate it. And believe me, infanticide is a far worse crime, Mrs. Connolly, than using a pronoun a person doesn't like. I hate to put it to you in those terms. But there it is. You see, in a certain sense, life is very much like being a tennis ball. We're smacked back and forth between the good and the bad, the pleasant and the unpleasant. And yet through it all, we have to maintain some sort of equilibrium, which the tennis ball does not have to do, incidentally. The tennis ball is utterly absolved of having to worry about maintaining any kind of feelings whatsoever. However, we are tennis balls that are intelligent and have souls. So we're stuck having to get through each game and then somehow maintaining our equilibrium. And it's tough for tennis balls. Don't think it isn't. But let's keep ourselves together. Let's hold on to our sanity. We'll stay sane inside insanity, as we've often said before. I'm going on to other things, and so is Vinny. But I'm sure we'll have reunions from time to time.
I'm pretty much. I promise you guys, there will be subsequent videos with Charles and I. I mean, whether I get to promote a new book from Charles or something like that, I'm sure something is going to come up. Life is not like, oh, well, this happened and now it will be like that forever. It doesn't happen like that.
No, the 10 years didn't happen forever. Their ending won't happen forever. And God knows, we had no idea when we started this thing it was going to last this long or become what it became.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny. The last time I was home, old Rose buttonholed me in the corridor. She had her. I'm always a little bit worried when she clutches her mop. I don't mind talking to her when she's got the mop in the bucket.
Yeah.
When she's holding it like slung on her shoulder, I'm always afraid she's going to smack me with it. Anyway, would you believe she grabbed my hand, keeping the mop firmly with the left hand? She grabbed my hand and kissed it and said, Mr. Coulombe, thank you so much to you and Mr. Vinny for giving us life. We would never have existed without you calling us into being. And I said, Rose, my dear, it's not just us. You have to thank our audience out there who inspired us, not simply to call you up from the depths of the collective unconscious where you had been happily dwelling for however long, but in giving you ever more identities, ever more personalities. Time and again, the audience would write in and make comments about you. And that, every time they did, it made you a little more solid in our heads. And she said to me, I'll never forget this. She said, that's so sweet of you. Are you going up to get a bite? I said, I am. She said, well, I'm going to have lunch later, but let me get you the elevator. I said, sure. So she pushes the button. The door opens. I go in. The door shuts. And I look, and there's a 13. And I knew there was no 13 on that elevator. There wasn't a 13th floor in the tower, right? Goes up. The thing stops. There's a loud ding. The door opens up, and then it I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
13th floor?
Oh, the 13th floor.
Yeah, that one time you're going up. Uh,
Oh, yes, and I remember the elevator went up, and I thought 13th floor. There's no 13th floor in this building. It's ridiculous. And it stopped, and it went ding, and the door opened up, and then I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
We actually were getting to Michael, or actually, I'm sorry, I said Michael, but it might be Michelle. I'm not sure if there's a French version. Micheo.
Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, I apologize for that. So he says, so there's actually a question at the end of this. He says, for my final question, can Charles please give some serious thought into writing a novel set in the Star-Spangled Crown universe? He alluded to something in the vein of Due South once before. I think this would be a wonderful foray into a different writing style for him. It would be a good way to soften the blow of your departure from the air. Vinny, make him an offer he can't refuse. Centani amici. Charles, look at either your brains or your signature are going to be on this contract.
Or both.
Oh man.
But well, that is a fair challenge. You know what? I'll give it a serious thunk. You know, I'd have to come up with little things like, oh, the first book lacked like a plot, characters. But no, I suppose. Let me see. You know what? Those of you who know the Star-Spangled Crown universe, if you have any ideas, I mean, I actually did think about a possible story set there. And what it would be is, you know, obviously, the Star-Spangled Crown is a given timeline. So, someone from the present manages he wants to go into the future to stop it, to keep this from happening. The problem with that is that it would actually have to occur not during Star-Spangled Crown, but during the shootout in the Oval Office, which was fun, but was only a plot device to get the new monarchy established. But it could be a plot to go back in time to stop it from happening. You know, if only President whatever her name was didn't hadn't done that, the Republic would have survived.
Hmm.
That's one possibility. There was a very good book called The Two Georges, set in a future America where the revolution had not taken place, and it's a very good novel, I must say. Uh, but yeah, I'd really have to give some thought to it. But if anybody have any Star Spangled Crown fans who would like to see a novel based on that universe, they give us some ideas. And for that matter, you all have my permission to use the Star Spangled Crown universe if you want to write a novel on your own. Because remember, it's a big place. There are 1,000 stories out there. This is His Majesty's city of Manhattan, of New York. There are 1,000 stories out there. Gritty, noirish. Look here, pal. I'm the Lord Mayor of New York. And if you think for 1 minute that kind of seditionist talk against the king is going to go a minute, huh? You're going to be bouncing up and down in the East River, Pally.
Yeah, I mean, you're just, your world is still it's not a happily ever after, per se, where it's like, oh, the king's here and everything's fine now. It's,
No.
I mean, one of the first things in the chapter, I remember my favorite line in the whole book is, there were mass starvations. It was a rough winter.
Yeah.
It's just the author's character. It's not something cataclysmic. It was a rough winter. In other words, this is kind of normal. You know,
Yeah.
and so
Well,
that begs the
yeah.
question: like, what does it actually look like? Because that is really, really far away from where we are now. So we kind of don't know the rules of this world.
Well, and we don't know. We don't really know how it got there. I
Yeah,
mean, we know that the republic collapsed, but his description is so fragmentary
yeah,
because he's presuming that his readers know everything already.
yeah.
Remember, it's like a book that comes out in 1947. The writer presumes you know about World War II. So if I say, well, yeah, about the time that Stukas were dive bombing Warsaw, well, okay, fine. If you'd lived through World War II, you would know what that meant. But if you didn't, you'd be like, what? What's he talking about? And it was that kind of a feel that I was trying to give Star Spangled Crown, because he's writing for an audience that doesn't really exist, but who lived through what he lived through.
Right.
So there are a lot of assumptions he makes that his reader will know, which of course the reader doesn't know, because the reader it's a future that hasn't happened yet. But he supposes you'll know all about the mass starvation. You lived through it.
Right. Right.
You saw that winter, and you know what happened, or you read about it in the history books, so you know what happened. I don't have to go into any mass details, any deep analysis. You know all about it. You've already seen it.
Right. Okay. Well, that possibilities will it's exciting a little bit if you consider it. Just the possibility you consider it.
I'll think it over.
Yeah.
I'll think it over, and you guys think it over too. But I guess that leads me to ask you a question.
Yes.
For one more time, what will it be when it's the Monday after next?
That'll be off the menu.
And what about the soul you save?
It may be your own.
God bless you all, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks.